Grammy-nominated producer Frank Payton, and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guests, music producer, prolific composer, and author, Marc Blatte.
My brother Frank, how you feeling, pal?
Here we are again.
Yes, back in the studio.
Memorial Day weekend coming up. What do you got planned?
I don't usually have planned anything, Frank. I sort of fly by the seat of my pants. You know what I mean? Somebody else write up a grill, I'll throw a hot dog on it, and I'll be happy enough. You know?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I mean, you throw a hot dog on a grill. That's my idea of living.
yeah.
A hamburger on a grill. These guys like Derek who need steaks. How you doing, Derek?
What kind of beef do you like fed? Do you like milk-fed beef? Are you a purist?
Look at his eyes. His eyes flew open.
Wow.
What kind of beef do you like, Derek?
Are you a purist? Kobe beef? Do you like the beer-fed beef or the milk-fed beef? Or?
I like the beef, grass-fed, grass-finish beef.
Grass. Wow.
I didn't even know he had a beef.
I didn't even know it had grass finished. Wow. So, do I dare ask what grass finished is?
Yes. So,
How did I know it would take this?
You went to the right spot. You went to the right spot to get this information.
never mind.
No. I want to know what is grass finished beef.
Okay, so basically, regular cows are fed wheat and corn and soybean at the finale, right before they die, in order to fatten them up.
Yeah.
Right? Get grass finish cows eat like they ate back in the day. They ate grass only. So they started with grass and they finished with grass. And it's much healthier than the other.
Where do you see it on packages when you're buying a steak? It says grass finish?
Yeah. It's very hard. It's very
Where
hard.
the hell do you buy your steaks, Lord and Taylor?
I've almost stepped on a bunch of grass finished.
Okay, since we're talking about steaks, I gotta guess. I'm guessing you're a medium rare guy.
Okay, go ahead. No, yeah, that's good. Good. Sorry.
I'm guessing you're a medium rare guy.
I'm not a steak guy at all.
You won't eat a steak?
I will eat a steak when I have to, but I don't like it.
Well, how do you like it cooked when you don't like it?
I like it.
How do you don't like it cooked?
I don't like it cooked medium well.
Oh, you really eat a steak medium well?
Yeah. And I can't get it down medium rare. And I can't ever. Let's go in phases. I can't get it even down less rare. And I for sure can't get it down steak au poivre.
Au poivre?
Steak au poivre. I can't get it at all. I gagged out a little
bit. Steak au poivre?
Yeah, what is it?
That's raw steak?
That's raw hamburger, I think.
Yeah.
Raw chopped steak.
Steak au poivre, huh? How about you? You look like a medium rare guy.
Yes, I am medium rare.
Yeah. I can't imagine anybody. You go to Ireland, they eat steak like the bottom of your shoe. They cook it well, and then they cook it some more. I swear to God.
Really?
I don't know how you can eat it.
I don't know how you can eat a steak cooked well. I like it when you parade the cow past the the grill. I say, that's good. Wrap that up. I'm in. I like it like that.
Well, the bigger thing is Frank doesn't like steak at all. He really doesn't like it.
I really don't like steak.
Don't like it. He's a meatloaf guy.
A meatloaf guy. See, we haven't had that conversation. Derek asked me what would my last meal be. I said,
This is
I said meatloaf, baked potato, and some string beans.
Can you imagine being in a jail cell and somebody asks you, "What's your last meal? Can I get meatloaf?"
That's what I was saying.
Can you imagine?
No.
Or I might have I might have a hot dog, one of those real thick ones, like Oscar quarter pounders.
Oh, in prison.
You know what? I am still to this day. I mean, growing up where I grew up and who I was.
Hey, our guest today is Marc Blatte, the really great songwriter, and this weekend is the celebration of 36 weeks since Hands Across America. He wrote the song, so we'll get to Marc in a few moments.
Yeah, meanwhile we're reminiscing about the steaks and hot dogs, right? I love hot dogs.
Yeah,
hot dogs in the ballpark. Hot dogs not in the baloney. Oh, I've always been a bologna fan. Always.
I love bologna. I can't believe I haven't had a fried bologna sandwich in ages.
I love fried bologna sandwiches. Yeah, I mean, and we all know it's lips and tips, right? We all know it's in these bologna and hot dogs. I mean, if you ever saw it being made, you'd never eat it in a million years. But I love the thing. And you know what? I'll tell you something. And a guy told me this, and I didn't believe it. When you were a kid and you used to eat hot dogs at the ballpark, not just because you were a kid, but the hot dogs tasted better 40 years ago. You know why they tasted better 40 years ago? Because they used to use horse meat. They tell you can't use horse meat anymore. The drug, who does that? The FDA, federal drug, I don't know. Whoever came down and said, but since they took horse meat out of it, they don't taste as good.
Is that true?
I swear to God. Horse meat they used to put in hot dogs.
I would bet that that's true because Billy knows more inane shit.
More ridiculous shit
than any man known to earth.
You know, lips and tips. You know,
lips and tits?
Lips and tips. Lips and tips. That's, you know, what they put in it. I mean, you know what's in a hot dog. I mean, it's garbage. It's whatever they got left and they grind it up and throw it in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a thing in Ireland. It's a sausage. And of course, you know the old adage about you never want to know how laws and sausages are made because you'll never eat them because they grind everything up. But in Ireland, where, of course, from the time of the famine and before, if they butcher a pig, they use every single part of that pig, including blowing up the bladder and playing football with it. You know, whatever is on that pig is getting used. Well, they make a sausage called black pudding. It looks like a big black sausage. And it's a breakfast thing. You slice it up and you fry it, you know, with Irish sausages, and which are delicious, by the way. Breadier than our sausages. But black pudding is made from sheep's blood. It's from dried sheep's blood is what it is, with all these spices in it. But I've been eating it since I was 3 years old, you know, since I was a little kid. And I always loved black pudding and white pudding as well. My daughter was watching one of those shows. My daughter, who's pregnant now, hopefully within this week, will produce a grandchild for me. She was watching a show with her girlfriends, and it was one of those, you know, dare to eat this, you know, and they were going to give somebody $40,000 if they'd eat black pudding. And my daughter's like 17. She goes, I love that stuff! And all her friends were looking at her like, you know. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if I ever tell you this story. I certainly didn't tell it on the air. But my father, we used to have pig's head, you know, once a week. You know, that was pig's head and turnips was an Irish meal.
Wow.
And the eye would still be in it. You know, like they'd cut off their head and they'd split it in half and you'd boil half the pig's head. And let me tell you something. If you like pork, I don't care if you like ribs, pulled pork, whatever, there is no sweeter part of the pig than its cheeks. It's unbelievable. It tastes unbelievable. You got to cut through about a mile of fat. But then when you cut the fat away, you get to this really lean meat. So my job was, I came back from school at 3 o'clock, was to go upstairs. I had to put on a pot of potatoes, you know, because my old man came home at 5:30. He wanted the spuds done and the pig's head. And the pig's head was boiled. So I said to my buddy, we're playing stickball. I said, I got to go upstairs. I got to put on the potatoes. And he says, potatoes? I said, yeah, I got to put on potatoes every night. I got to turn them on at 3:30. It takes about an hour for them to boil. And I said, that plus we're cooking a pig's head. He said, pig's head. So he came in anyway. I grabbed the pig's head out of the pot, you know, by the ear. The eyes looking at him like this. They're boiling children up here. You know? He freaked out. He ran down. He's cooking children up there. But yeah, people eat weird shit depending on what country they're from, and it's normal, you know. Go to Thailand. I mean, you ain't seeing nothing floating around, bugs or anything. They're eating them.
Eat those bugs.
That's protein, man. They're not, you know, they're not passing any of it up. Wow. Anyway, how did we get that from steak? What kind of steak?
I don't like steak.
That's fucking amazing.
I really don't like chocolate. Derek said,
nobody doesn't like chocolate.
Derek said to me, let's go out and drink some wine some night. I said, I don't like wine. I mean, I said, we'll go out, but I'm not going to drink any wine. I said, why not? We've had this discussion before.
I know you don't drink. I know you don't like food. You don't drink, but you don't like the taste.
But I don't like the taste. Thank you. Why don't I just have Derek interview you for you being me?
Sorry.
No, you being me.
I
don't like the taste of alcohol.
Well, the thing is, Billy, I wanted to know, what does he like? I mean, this is a bigger question.
I don't like any alcoholic beverages.
No, but do you like anything?
I like you.
Oh.
Chocolate. How could you not like chocolate? Nothing chocolate?
Well, Derek.
I thought you were going to get pissed off when he said
Derek and Halle Berry.
Halle Berry, yeah, she's always good to pinch, I imagine. And nothing chocolate? Nothing at all chocolate?
I would rather eat non-chocolate than chocolate. I can eat chocolate sometimes, but I would rather eat
fried bologna
than chocolate. I'd rather eat a hot dog. I'd rather eat a hot dog than a steak. I would rather eat meatloaf than a steak.
How about fish? You a fish guy?
Not really.
Do you hate all the fishes equally? Or do you have some fish that you really can't tolerate?
Oh no, cod's okay. I like cod. Yeah. If salmon doesn't take fishy, I can gag down salmon.
See, I don't do salmon.
Yeah.
I do like it smoked. I like the lox and bagels. Do you like that?
Oh, no.
No?
No, because it feels slimy in my mouth.
Frank, if you don't put anything slimy in your mouth ever, you're going to be in a bit of a jacket.
Oh, we're not talking about meat eaters.
Well, you know what? Lox and bagels. I love lox. I don't like salmon because it's so fatty. You know, and I like all kinds of fish. I love anything that crawls on the bottom of the ocean.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Bottom of everything.
Bottom of everything.
The bottom of everything is where you find
all the shit that's coming down.
The bottom of everything is where you find Billy.
That's me. The dredges. The dredges of society is where I like to ramble about. But yeah, but I love lox and bagels because I mean you take a really good New York bagel, put some cream cheese on it, put the salmon, then lettuce, tomato, some capons, and squeeze lemon all over it. Capers.
Yeah.
Not capons. That's a Boyd. Ain't that a Boyd?
It's a Boyd.
Capon's a Boyd, right, Derek?
Yes, sure.
We're talking about capons.
Capers.
Have you ever cooked? Use anything? Anybody you ever throw capers in anything but lox and bagels? What the hell do I use them things for? What is an Italian dish?
I don't eat capers.
Oh my God.
Capers all over your steak. There's an Italian dish they use capers though.
I don't know.
There is. Come on, you cook once in a while.
I don't know.
You don't know. You're Italian. Yeah, you know a guy named Tony Panerini.
I know every Tony who's ever walked the earth.
He's Italian. You should know him.
Hey, before we get to Marc Blatte, I just thought of my favorite line of the week. When Susan Collins had my favorite line of the week. She goes, "The 3 Supreme Court justices lied to me."
Shocking.
Shocking. I said to myself, I'm shocked to learn there's gambling at Rick's. Shocked to learn there's gambling at Rick's.
There's 3 men with this. You know the best line I heard about the Supreme Courts is this leak. Of course, we're going to go there with the leak. Is the fairy dust of the Supreme Court. Like we had this idea that, again, sausages and laws, how they're made. We don't really want to know. We have this idea that the Supreme Court sits behind and it's almost like how they ordain a pope. This fairy dust comes back and says, that's the law. Poof, you know? And now with the leak, it sort of shatters that whole whole deal about, because the first draft sucks. The first draft, regardless of how you feel about abortion, the first draft of that thing is just like Mark Twain said, or Hemingway said, the first draft of everything sucks. Well, that sucks. He's taking his premise on a guy from the 16th century or some shit. It's ridiculous.
Of course. Well, the whole Supreme Court thing is antiquated. You said you thought that there should be a 20-year term limit on a Supreme Court justice because when the founders of the Constitution wrote it, the life expectancy was 65 years. If you were 55 and you were appointed to the Supreme Court for life, that you might serve 10 years. Now, at 55, you serve 35.
Yeah, and the law of the land.
And if you're Clarence Thomas, you're going to serve forever.
Well, why is he going to live forever?
Well, no, he's going to serve forever. I think he was 40 years old when he was on the Supreme Court. He's
term limits. We all agree. Frank, Derek, you believe in term limits as well, I'm sure. I mean, we all agree on it. And of course, it's never going to get passed because they're not going to cut their own throat or whatever. But how ludicrous it is. When you think of Strom Thurmond, I mean, it was a guy, served until he was 103. Feinstein now is supposed to be
Arabetel. That means nuts.
No,
that's Hebrew for nuts.
That's Hebrew for nuts. Say it again.
Arabetel.
Arabetel. Well, that's a fine word for nuts. But yeah, I mean, Strom Thurmond served 103 years old. How in the hell could you get paid to do anything at 103 except lie down? Can you imagine in your business? Oh, the union just sent this guy over, put him to work. He's 103. It's ludicrous. It's crazy.
If the union sent him over and he was an extra, I'd sit him in the courtroom of night court, and he would look.
You're playing the corpse.
You're playing the corpse.
Close your eyes. Can you do that? Can you just close your eyes and lay still?
Well, speaking of playing, Marc Blatte has played a lot of things in his life. He's primarily a musician, co-producer, and I went to high school with him. So that
was
opens
there a
up
lot of successful guys that came out of Valhalla High?
Not like Perry Rogers, that's for sure. Perry
some,
Rogers has got a lot of guys.
That was some high school class. I would like to have been there just to hang out to their coattails.
Yep, for sure. But let's go to Mark. He's got a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, let's find out about it.
Oh,
there he is.
Marc Blatte. Can you hear me?
Bill.
Look at
how are you guys? And I just want to show you what I got here.
Oh, what a guy. Thank you, Mark.
Well, we're well into it now. Good to see you, my friend. Where are you? You in South Carolina? You in Nicaragua? Where are you?
Charleston. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina.
And how much time you spend between South Carolina and Nicaragua?
No more Nicaragua. Gone. Gone. Big. They had a revolution there. We had to leave.
Hey, before we continue, can you put that book back where we can see it?
Right here.
Put it over your right shoulder.
You know, I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina for 3 years.
Okay. So how's that?
That's great.
The line was 200 years of history on. Somebody had written 200 years of history, right? Charleston, South Carolina. Somebody wrote underneath it, unmarred by progress.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So, Mark, 36 years ago today, you wrote, well, not 36 years ago today, we celebrated Hands Across America.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Now, I got Jean, my wife,
right,
who kind of coordinated everything. And she wrote something for me to read so you guys can get the whole picture.
Okay.
Great.
That's okay?
Okay.
So how did Hands Across America come about? My first big hit in advertising was at Look & Company. That was Jean Neary Look's company. It was The Pride is Back for Chrysler in 1985. The Pride is back, born, Anyway, so Jean produced it. She sold the song through to the guys at the advertising agency, and it won Best Advertising Age, Best Music in the United States that year.
Don't read it. Just talk. Just talk it. Talk. Don't have to read it.
Oh no! I want to give everybody props here, Frank. I got
Okay.
I can remember you like it was yesterday playing for the Little League Yankees, but I can't remember.
Well, that
anything else
that lets the secret out of the bag that I've known Mark since Little League.
Little League, man. Little League.
You weren't pitching then, were you, Frank?
No, nor was I catching.
You were hitting though, Frank.
I was hitting infrequently.
So Kenny Rogers sang the song, and it's on his Greatest Hits album. And around that same time, Kenny Rogers and Ken Cragen put together "We Are the World."
Right.
And they asked if I would be interested in writing Hands Across America. And at the time, I was working on pretty much around the clock on "This Is Not Your Father's Oldsmobile." I wrote that one. And anyway, so I wrote the song with Larry Gottlieb, who Larry is now a Grammy winner. He wrote "Believe Me, Baby, I Lied." And for, I can't think of her name right now. and John Carney. John Carney is a childhood friend of Gene's, and he is the nephew of Art Carney. And his son is Reeve Carney. He stars in Penny Dreadful. So it's all connected. So those two guys helped me out. When Lionel Richie heard the song, he told Kenny Rogers, the only thing wrong with the song is that there is nothing wrong with the song. Which I thought that was very nice. And so Gene's company, Look, produced two pieces of music to be sung on the line of people holding hands across America, and involved in other aspects. And we posed on the steps of City Hall. And remember Ed Koch?
Yep, sure.
We held hands with Ed Koch, and we were holding hands with Lily Tomlin during the event. So pretty much I owe everything here to Gene. She's been my creative director and producer, and a major champion.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Now, you got all the props in for you. What did you feel like with the first time you heard it?
Oh, man. Well, I was overwhelmed. It was really overwhelming. You know, I mean, going back 35 years, and I was just kind of like getting started, and I was just, oh my God, this is really too much for me. That's pretty much what I thought. And I was crying, you know. That was just too much for me, Frank. I gotta tell you, man. I was like, what? So that's how I felt about it.
Well, Hands Across America, the whole event was to feed the hungry, right? To feed the hungry in the world. That's what it was all organized for?
Yeah. Ken Cragen managed Harry Chapin. And Gene's partner, our first partner in business was Steve Chapin, who was Harry's brother. And we used to work a lot on World Hunger Year, which was an industry-wide way of raising money for the hungry and the homeless. So Harry was died, but Ken wanted to, keep Harry's memory alive, and so he came up with Hands Across America.
Well, if you guys would give me liberty for a second, I just want to read some of the names for our audience that were involved in this, because it's really unbelievable. Robin Williams, Barbara Streisand, President Reagan, Billy Graham, Oprah Winfrey, Prince, Jane Fonda, Jerry Seinfeld, Brooke Shields, 21 years old, on the Washington Bridge, Bill and Hillary Clinton. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And then forget about the celebrities. In Pittsburgh, nuns held head with members of Hill's Angels to form the link, and cows in New Mexico. It's really an unbelievable undertaking.
Yeah, I was pretty, I was blown away pretty much.
And it raised $18 million to feed the hunger,
Yeah.
That's terrific.
And it was just, it was incredible. I felt, really honored to, when Kenny Rogers and Ken Cragen called, I was just kind of overwhelmed with work. And I was kind of hesitant to do it. And I said to them, you got all these great writers in We Are the World. Why don't you ask those guys to write the song? Because I was really trying to wiggle my way out of it, to tell you the truth. And he said, we did. Oh my God. Oh, you did. And then they were schmoozing me. They wanted me to. They were like, oh man, you're just a great writer. I know you can do this. And I'm like, Gene gives a thumbs up, and I'm like, okay, we're in. And then I wrote the song on a Thursday. I sent it to Kenny on a Monday, and on Tuesday he said, he played it for Lionel and Quincy Jones, and they liked it. And then Kenny said, well, of all the people in the world, who do you want to sing this thing? And I said, well, there's a guy I work with named Joe Cerizano. He goes, well, don't you want anybody famous? I said, no, I actually prefer it if nobody's famous. Just want this to be kind of like We the People thing. And so they went along with it. And Sandy Farina sang it with Joe Cerizano. And Kenny sang The Pride Is Back with Sandy, and he wanted her to go on tour. And, there's an awful lot of money as a jingle singer. And she was like, I don't think so, Ken. So I was like, okay, all right, whatever, you know. So that's the story.
Yeah.
You know.
How'd you get started in music?
Well, I got started in music when I was 17. I was in a band.
You got started in music before that, because I remember you were one of the first clarinets with Steve Marcus, Kenny Malkin, and Marc Blatte were always the first three clarinets in the band, and I was bringing up the third chair, fourth chair, third clarinet in the high school band.
Right.
Licorice Stick, you too?
I was.
No, he was great, man. I didn't know that. Soccer player, he did it all, man.
Did it all, huh? Licorice Stick. I didn't know you played that, baby. That's great.
Yeah, were you with us at the World's Fair? Did you make that trip to the World's Fair to open the World's Fair?
I didn't go. No.
Oh, yeah, because you were a year behind me. So I think I was maybe in 7th grade. You were maybe still in 6th grade, but I thought you were such a talent at that time that they may have brought you up to make this band sound better. But Marcus was probably the first clarinet. Do you see Steve at all?
Yeah, I just saw him up in New York. You know, when he was 16, he got a record deal, and so he was my hero. Steve Marcus. Steve Marcus taught me the piano and guitar, and how I learned. I was 12 or 11, and he was about 16, and I heard The House of the Rising Sun. I said, Steve, can you teach me how to play it? So he taught me on guitar and piano, and then I learned it in every key. And after that, I was good to go.
Wow, that's how it started, huh?
And then so I was in this band when I was 17, and we recorded 4 songs, and I used to take the train into Manhattan with a bag of dimes and my tapes, and I would call publishers. And out of 10, I would maybe speak to 1, right? And so I would, when I saw these publishers, they would play my song, first song, play it. They go, oh man, this really sucks. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. You want to hear the second one? So I played them the second one, and they're like, this sucks too. You'll appreciate this. And then I played them the third and the fourth, and they're like, man, kid, this all sucks, right? So I'm 17 years old. I'm like, well, can you play me something that you guys think is good? So they played me something, and I go, I'm coming back. I'll be back in 6 months. And I come back in 6 months, and I play them my stuff, and they go, well, most of the song sounds like crap, but there's 3 seconds there that are really good, Mark. And so I focused on the 3 seconds, and by the time I was 28, every place I went, it sounds like a hit, you know?
Amazing.
That's how it happens.
That's 11 years of perseverance.
Yeah, knocking on doors and relentless. Just keep pushing until somebody listens.
Yeah,
but
you know, it's
have
really
so much confidence in yourself to do that. I mean, you got to know that I can write, and these son of a bitches better listen.
I wouldn't. I think it's just an existential thing. I'm sure you guys have felt this way. It's like, well, if I don't do this, you know, make the calls, go to the office, I'll never be a writer. And this is just part of what I have to do. And, you know, rejection, I was talking to Frank about it, you know, you get 500 rejections, and you're 501, you get accepted. And that's what it takes, you know.
That's what it takes to get lucky.
That's what it takes to get lucky.
That's what it takes. And you know what? It's interesting. On Mark's website, the opening line on his website is a quote from Churchill. And it's terrific because it's absolutely true. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And boy, does that define show business, doesn't it?
And why don't you tell the audience what your website is, so if anybody wants to look it up?
Oh, it's Marc, M-A-R-C, Blatt, BLATTE.com.
MarcBlatte.com.
And I also have to tell you this. I've been working on a music project for 40 years, and I just got a record deal. It's called The Distant Thunder. It's on Blue Collar Records. And the band is me and Joe Sarasano, the guy who sang Hands Across America. And we wrote all the stuff. And we're offered a record deal. It was just recently.
And you've got a cut on it called Healing Hands, right?
Yeah, Healing Hands is going to be the first single.
And why don't you tell us what Healing Hands is about?
Well, first off, Frank, you and I were blessed to grow up in an integrated school.
Mm-hmm. This is Valhalla High for our audience.
Right.
Valhalla High, yeah. Right. And I went to Virginia Road School, which was about a third African American, third Jewish, and a third white folks. But nobody had any money except the African Americans, right? Frank, they lived in Parkway Gardens and they had beautiful homes.
Yeah, the African Americans who lived who had money. The others lived on the other side of the freeway on Lafayette Avenue, over by Linden's Cookies. Do you remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So my experience, growing up was African Americans were smart, like Jerry Spann went to Princeton, because they all had their own homes, and some of them even had summer homes. And I remember the first time I asked somebody, what you doing this summer? He said, I'm going to my summer home. I was like, where's that? He goes, Oak Bluffs, Martha's Vineyard. I go, I'm living in an apartment, man, and you got 2 homes. What's with that? It's like a shock to me. So
Billy's shocked too.
So anyway, I was thinking about, this was maybe 35 years ago. So something bad had happened in New York. Oh yeah, those kids were accused of raping that woman that they didn't rape.
The Wilding incident.
And
Wilding.
Oh, was it?
I thought
it was something
Central
8.
Park. That's when
Central Park 8?
Trump took out the ad. Yeah, they were all guilty.
Right. So I was thinking, like, it was just a crazy time. So I sat down to write a song, and it started out, I was born a white in the hills of West Virginia. I dreamed I was a black man in Selma, Alabama. It was 61, and in the early morning sun, I was marching for freedom. Repair what's been broken, bring back what was taken. The dream has been shattered, the promise forsaken. The water is rising all over this land. Everybody's searching for a healing hand. That's it.
Yeah,
it's a poignant lyrics, very powerful lyrics.
It's a great song. I've heard it. Mark's played it for me. That's a terrific song.
Really
yeah, it was played. Lyrics. It was played down here by the congressman who got Biden elected down here. I can't think of his name now, but he played it at his prayer meeting, and that was like a big thing for me.
Yeah,
the lyrics are so powerful to that. I had I guess it wouldn't be a critic, but an endorser of your writing, and they said that you write like a freight train that's on fire, which I think is a great.
Oh, thank you.
I thought that was just terrific, and just from those lyrics, I could see the way you do. I didn't read, unfortunately, but I'm really anxious to read Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah,
was pushed because the title is amazing.
That quote is from Fred Berner, who produces Law and Order and right now directs and writes the FBI.
Yeah,
that's a hell of a quote.
Right? It's a good book.
Yeah, I love the title. Absolutely love the title. How did that come to you? I got to know.
Okay, well, now I'm going to go into a little bit about New York, because you guys are both from New York. It's a tribal city. It's a city of tribes. Like, one of the reasons I've been successful is because I'm a shtetl Jew, and there are a lot of shtetl Jews like Clive Davis. And when they see me, they go, "Oh, hi, Boychik, come on in." You know what I'm saying?
What does shtetl Jew mean exactly? I mean,
it means like it would mean like somebody like Larry David, somebody who is not really from a upper middle class background, more like, working class.
Mm-hmm.
And
he is now
from the boroughs.
Yeah,
from the boroughs.
Uh-huh.
So I'm from the Bronx originally. So and anyway, so I'm sorry. What was the question? That's I want to tell you. So how did I come up with the title?
Yeah, the title is amazing.
So I was researching, after 9/11, Gene and I spent a lot of time down at police headquarters feeding the first responders. So I got to know them, and I met some homicide guys, and I spent a year riding around with them. And so so when I started writing the book, actually when I had written the first draft, I said, now this goes back to tribal. I said, I really need to meet a homicide detective. And I said, I'm Jewish. All I know are accountants, doctors, record producers. Jeannie Neary, right? Uh-huh. Right? I say, I bet you can hook me up with a detective. She's Irish, right?
Oh, yeah.
So she calls up her neighbor, who she used to babysit for, and she says, Mark's looking for somebody, an Irish person. This is all through Irish people. An Irish person to talk to who's a big-time detective. And he says, it's a good thing because I am the liaison for the New York police with the public. So he introduced me to a guy named Tom Nerney. Tom Nerney is the most decorated homicide detective in New York. He fully prosecuted 3,000 cases. And we went to lunch down on Madison Street. Everybody knows Madison Avenue, but this is Madison Street. And he's like right out of Central Casting. He's tall, he's good looking. He's probably at that time maybe around 58. I was probably around 50. And so I said to him, Tom, I want you an investigation. What's the first thing you think of? And he says, Humpty Dumpty was pushed. I'm like, that's a great title for a book. You mind if I use it? Now, what does it mean? And he said, okay, Mark, the way that I approach criminals is this. You got a criminal and you got a victim. And the victim is the victim, but at one time the criminal was the victim. So my whole strategy is empathy. So Humpty Dumpty was pushed means somebody pushed somebody, that's the victim, but the person who pushed that person is also the victim. And that philosophy, he was the liaison CIA, New York CIA, after 9/11, and they used his techniques in Iran and Iraq.
Wow.
Like no bad guys, cop, just total empathy, total empathy. And it was pretty amazing. But to my point about the ethnic thing, he's Irish Catholic, and he was quoting Mother Teresa and stuff like that. And I said to my wife afterwards, I said, if you were with me, you would have gotten about 30% more out of the conversation because there's subtext. And what they say about the Irish is, don't listen to what they say, listen to what they don't say if you want to know what they mean. I don't know. Bill, you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. You're from the Bronx. What? Because you touch all the boroughs and Humpty Dumpty was pushed, right? I mean, you go from...
Yeah, I'm from Allerton Avenue.
Allerton Avenue, sure. I know well. Allerton Avenue. I grew up right Bedford Park, right there.
Yeah, right.
Right there. Yeah. French Charlie's you're talking about, Allerton Avenue. French Charlie's. Yeah. And you guys, with the high school connection, I was making a joke to Frank earlier. I said, Valhalla. I mean, everybody knows in New York, the Valhalla's, everybody in the cemetery where Babe Ruth was buried and everything else. So I said, what'd you call the baseball team? The Fighting Gravediggers? I mean, is that what it was? Let's go with Fighting Gravediggers. But so you touch all the boroughs in that book, Humpty Dumpty was pushed. I mean, pretty much. You're Manhattan, Bronx.
Yeah. Well, Gene and I, in 1983, I produced one of the first hip-hop records for Profile Records. I was really into hip-hop. And I got really familiar with it. And then I stopped. I started doing music for advertising. And in the 90s, we had a lot of big accounts, and we were really, really successful. And we were looking for something to do. And we met a guy who managed a hip-hop artist. And we called the label Mighty Music. And we invested and lost $400,000 over 3 years. But we had so much fun. Wu-Tang would come up to our office. All the hip hop stars would come up to our office, and we'd be hanging out. So I decided. So basically, what happened is this: I have a cousin who's a Pulitzer Prize winner. She's her name is Inga Safran, and she writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And her husband is Ken Kalfas, who is really. I just got his new book, and Jonathan Safran's Foyer says Kenny Kauf's one of the greatest writers in America. And so after the trade centers came down, I said to Gene, I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. I was 52, and I said, well, can we retire? You know, we have enough money for the kids for college. Can we take care of our folks? She said, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So we just traveled around the world for 4 years, and I would write these travel logs because we'd go to places and just stupid things would happen to us. You know, we wound up in a Bedouin tent in Jordan, you know, having tea with Bedouins, you know, in the middle of the desert, stuff like that. And I was writing these travel logs, and I sent them back to my relatives, and Ken and Inga said, you should write a book. And I said, really? Wow. And that's how I began Humpty, and I wrote a draft, and then I hired an editor. Then I rewrote it. So I had 5 different editors before it actually got published. It took me 5 years. But what I had intimate knowledge of was the hip hop culture from having spent 3 years promoting and hanging out with people like Wu-Tang. And I was very familiar with the record business because I had, as Frank will tell you, I've been making records. I made, one of the reasons I met Gene was because I produced Rachel Sweet.
And
right, Frank?
Yeah, my friend Rachel Sweet, I've known her for a lot of years. She was a writer on a Lopez show, and then I reacquainted with her again when she was married to my friend Tom. My friend, I can't remember his last name.
My friend Tom, what's his name? You know what's his name?
Tom, my friend Tom. That's why I'm writing things down, Tom.
My friend Tom, what's his name?
Exactly.
Exactly.
I know who you mean.
Yeah.
But so you know, and I had co-written and with she and Larry Gottlieb an album with her, and then about a few months later, one of my friends who was playing with, his name's Robbie Condor. He was playing with Eric Clapton, and he said to me, I want to introduce you to somebody, and you're going to have a lot of fun and make a lot of money. I was like, well, that sounds good. I think I can go for that. And it's really hard to make money in the record business. So I played her the Rachel Sweet album, and she was just like, I sent her the Rachel Sweet album. She was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to work with this guy. And so at that point, she had a very boutique company, and she built it up to be one of the largest music for advertising companies in the world. It was pretty amazing. It's quite amazing. So, and then 10 years later, I married her.
All right, success story.
Smart guy.
Oh man, and every day, life is just a blessing, man.
And he said it was hard to make money in the music business. Yeah. See, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Why'd you?
Listen, man. I gotta just give you an example. Okay, so I wrote this song. Celine Dion recorded it in French, but before that, it was a hit and I made $80,000, and my co-writer made $3,000. Now, how did that happen? Well, I was signed to Warner Brothers, and they collected my money, and he was signed to another company, and guess what? They kept his money. Yeah. And that's just like normal record business stuff. You just have to, it's really like World Federation Wrestling, right? And it's just crazy business.
Yeah, the pioneers of rock and roll learned a lesson the hard way, didn't they?
Yeah.
Little Anthony, little Richard, and all of those guys.
They talk about the 50s, but my friend Pepe, who we had on the show, he got ripped off bad.
Pepe Castro.
When he with the blues.
I know Pepe.
You know Pepe?
Yeah.
Pepe on the show. I grew up with Pepe in the Bronx.
I love him, man.
Oh, he's a sweet
guy. Island, he plays with the Alessi brothers.
Yeah, he played with the Alessi brothers, exactly.
And those are really good friends of mine.
The Alessi brothers? Sure, I know those two guys, yeah.
I love those guys. They're so talented. In fact, it was Billy Alessi who told me to do jingles. He said, Mark, because they had records.
Pepe did too. He did a lot of jingles. Barnaby Bye, you're talking about the group Barnaby Bye, the Alessi brothers and Pepe. But
so talented.
They got ripped off bad, but he was with the Blues Magoos. He got buried by guys, pretty much like you did. I'm sure you had to bang around and learn the hard way.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's rough, man, and I am just so thankful that I was able to continue to write songs, but I didn't have any financial conditions because of Gene's company and all the work that we were doing. You know, we did the music for Chrysler, the U.S. Army. I wrote "Freedom Isn't Free." I wrote "I'm Going to Disneyland." Actually, over 50 things that you would know, and they were all produced by her. And she also repped the company, so she was getting all this business. I mean, it was really just too much. And then what I would do is every Monday morning at 8:00, from 12:00, I'd meet with Joe Sarasano, and we'd write songs. Well, and that's what this album is. That started 40 years ago.
Well, one of the songs you wrote during that time was "When She Was My Girl" by the Four Tops.
Yeah.
Was that your biggest hit?
I think so. I think it is. I think it is. I mean, it's got like 11 million views on YouTube, and it's the Four Tops, and it's just like, oh my God! Now, I remember being 13 years old, driving with my dad and listening to "Reach Out," and I said, "Dad, stop the car." Stop the car. And then 17 years later, there I was with the guys who were the Four Tops. So it was pretty remarkable.
Well, when we were in high school, there was always a debate who was better, Chamberlain or Russell, who was better, Koufax or Drysdale, and who was better, the Temps or the Tops. I was a firm Tops guy.
You were?
Yeah. History has proven me wrong, I guess. But I still prefer the Tops to the Temptations.
Actually, they had more hits than anybody on Motown. And and I got to tell you, man, they were just nice people. That's one thing I can say. People ask me, well, what's it like, being around stars or working with stars and stuff like Kenny. They're just the nicest people. I mean, I can't tell you how nice Kenny was to me.
Kenny Rogers or Kenny Cragen or both of them?
Kenny Rogers. Now I got to tell you the funniest story. This is about Kenny Rogers, and this is about the guys who were from the agency that produced "The Pride Is Back." So these guys call me up. This involves Sherry Lansing, Henry Kissinger. I mean, it's just unbelievable, right? So these two guys call me up. They call Gene up and say, okay, Billy, is Marc there? Marc there? Can I speak to Marc? Right? So, and these are powerful guys. They're running the Chrysler camp, right? So I get on the phone and they say, Marc. Yep. They have me on a speakerphone. Could you write a song? It would be a big favor to us. I said, yes. Right? Just like it, yes. And then they goes, no, it can really be big. I said, yes. And they go, no, I mean really big. And I said, can't you guys take yes for an answer? It's like, they just kept going. So they said, it's a special event at the Waldorf. That's what they told me. And it's called An Evening for Life. And we would like you to write a song called Evening for Life. So I wrote the song and with Larry Gottlieb and Mark Cohn. Mark Cohn, Walking to Memphis?
Yeah.
He came in to sing it. And these guys hadn't heard it. But what they said is, we want you to meet us at the Plaza Athénée Hotel at 10:00 in the morning. Bring the song and bring a boombox. Right? Like, okay. So I go to the hotel, the Plaza Athénée, which I'd never heard of. But you know that hotel?
No.
It's like, that's why the reason we don't know it is because it ain't for people like us. I mean, I was like, hello? So they said, oh, well, listen, when you get to the front door, tell them you're here to see Sherry Lansing. Now, I didn't know who Sherry Lansing was. I'm telling you the truth, honestly. So, so I say, I go up and I knock on the door, and this gorgeous woman, is right there, right? And she says, hello, I'm Sherry Lansing. And I'm like, because I don't know who she is. I'm like, oh, hi, Sherry. And there's the two guys that, I wrote the song for. So she said, sit down, have some orange juice. And then she asked the song, right? And I played the song, and she started weeping, like just shaking, weeping. It was just very emotional for her. And at the end of the song, we were all at the table. I felt somebody grab my leg. It was one of the guys, Marc, can you write this song? he said, boy chick, you did it. So Sherry's across the table crying. And I go around, I put my arm around her, I say, look, it's okay. And then one of the guys goes, play it again, Marc. Don't play it again. Forget it, man. This is like, no. So they played it anyway. So she loved it, and I thought that was the end of it. But then I go back to the office, and she calls, and she says, I want you to be my guest at the Waldorf Astoria for this dinner, honoring me for the American Lung Cancer Association. And then the guys called and said, Marc, can you get Kenny to do a video of the song? I was like, what? You know what that's like? It's like, what? And Jean's like, I'll get it done, Marc. So she calls Kenny up, and Kenny says, yeah, I'll do it. So I go down to Nashville, and I record it with him. And while he's recording the song, he looks at me and he says, does it sound okay? And to tell you the truth, what I was thinking is, I'm in the studio with Kenny Rogers. Does it sound okay? I said, Kenny, sounds amazing. What are you asking me for? Anyway, so they did a video, and now we're at the Waldorf Astoria. I'm in a tuxedo. Jean is there. Her husband's there. My ex-wife is there. And these clients are there. And everybody's in tuxedos. And, it's big time New York charity event. So the guy comes up on the stage, and he says, I'm so-and-so, chairman of the board of Cartier. That's nice. And then he says, we have a special song here today, and it was written by Marc Blatte. Marc, would you stand? And to be honest with you, in advertising, you don't go up to get the award. Other people do. So I was looking around for Marc Blatte. I was like, where's this guy Marc Blatte? I want to see him. And Jean's like, man, it's you jerk. So, okay, I stand up. Everybody says, okay. And then, there's this video that comes on, and Danny DeVito, that Midler, because at that point I realized who Sherry was. She's a producer of Forrest Gump and, many, many hits. Okay, so she gives a speech, and I say to my wife at that time, I want to go up and congratulate her. So I go up to her, I congratulate her, and she says to me, Marc, have you met my escort? I mean, no, I don't believe I have. And she goes, Henry Kissinger, this is Marc Blatte.
Whoa.
I'm like, and he goes, congratulations. You must be very proud. And this is important. All I could think about when he said that was Joseph Heller's book, Good as Gold, where Henry Kissinger is asked how come he has a Jewish accent, and he says, it is not a Jewish accent, it's a German accent. Okay? Anyway, so then Sherry asks me to dance. It's just me and her, and this orchestra's playing my song, and I'm dancing with her, and I'm like, Jesus, this is too much. And then she says, we're going out to Elaine's afterwards, Henry and I. Would you like to join us? And I was like, Sherry, I got to tell you something. My mind is blown. I just want to go home.
Whoa, you turned it down? A trip to Elaine's with Henry Kissinger. Sherry, wow.
Yeah, my mind is blown. I just want to go up on an upbeat. Anyway, fast forward many years later, and I'm in Bridgehampton with my wife and my sister-in-law, who is Lynn Neary, NPR, All Things Considered. And she knows all, she part of her job is to know who's a celebrity. And I'm there with Gene's father-in-law, Bill Neary, and his wife. And Bill Neary, Bill Neary put the ire in Ireland. He's not, he's a tough guy. Anyway, so we're in this restaurant, and this guy walks in, and I'm like, I don't know. I was love. I didn't know who he was or anything. It never happened to me in my life. Never happened since. And I just was like looking at this guy, like I was just adoring him, So I said to Lynn, "Who is that?" And she said, "Oh, that's Joseph Heller." I said, "Oh man, I got to talk to Joseph Heller, And she goes, "No, you don't. He's a misanthrope. He has no interest in talking to anybody." And anyway, so when he was at the table alone, I went up to him and I said, "Joseph Heller, I'm Marc Blatte." This goes to the shtetl Jew thing. He opens his arms like this and he says, "Marc Blatte, what can I do you for?"
What can I do you for?
That's what he says to me. And then I tell him about Henry Kissinger, and he starts laughing because he hates Henry Kissinger. He thinks he's a criminal. And he told me, I was watching Henry Kissinger's brother on CNBC this morning, and they asked him, "Mr. Kissinger, why don't you have an accent like your brother?" And he says, "Because, businessman, when people talk, I listen."
Well, if you read Catch-22, if you read Heller's book, you get the idea that he's going to hate Kissinger for sure.
Oh, yeah,
he hated the idea it could be a misanthrope.
Right. So anyway, this is the last part of it. So we're in the restaurant. I'm with my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law and my wife. And as he's leaving, Heller comes up, puts his arm around me, and says to my father-in-law, "Marc Blatte, I love this kid."
Whoa! The cherry on the top.
That's great.
That's great. That's a
whole story.
That's a great story. I had one brief experience with Henry Kissinger. I was with Stallone in Washington, D.C., and we were going through a food line in a press box, and I was right next to Kissinger, and he was eating, taking off the food line, and I had to say something. And as I said, "Mr. Kissinger, how are you?" And as he opened his mouth, food came flying out of it. I was ducking like it was shrapnel. and that was my experience with Henry Kissinger.
Well, you also had the experience with Stallone, as you write about in the book, that you switched the nameplates.
Yeah, that was the day that I switched his nameplate. But this isn't about me. This is about Marc.
I know. No. I want to hear that story.
Story.
No.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I won't put you on the spot, but it's a great story. Read the book if these little can talk. It's in there. And read Humpty Dumpty was pushed while you're at it.
Here Humpty Dumpty was pushed. There it is.
That's
the new edition.
That's the new edition. And
new edition.
Well, I got to ask you, Marc, because of the people that you've worked with, it blows me away. I mean, Celine Dion and Marie Osmond, Kenny Rogers, the Manhattans, the Four Tops, of course, Richie Havens.
Yeah.
Havens was a good friend of Pepe, too. Do you have an affinity for who you'd like to work with again, or any of them, all of them? Who was the best to work with? Who was the worst to work with?
If you had to repeat it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, all I can tell you is, and this is the truth, that everyone, including Yo-Yo Ma, Kenny Rogers, Dr. John, I was hanging out with the guys from, I'm trying to think, they're stars, I forget who. They were really nice. Everybody I've ever worked with has been, I would say, ambassadorial. They have incredible comportment. I would say they're also amazingly humble and kind. And that is true of pretty much every single person I work with. I can't think of somebody who wasn't. And it's just, I don't know. I think that Frank, I mean, I don't know what, show business is like, but I think that there's just this humility about these people that helps them be successful. Maybe that's how they get there.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of musicians in my time also, but I always recall that we had Tony Bennett on Suddenly Susan one year, and for the next 10 years, I must have gotten Christmas cards from Tony Bennett.
Exactly.
Just because I was a producer. He would send his Christmas cards of a painting that he painted, and he would sign it Tony Bennett. And it always made an impression on me.
Well, why wouldn't it? I mean, that's fantastic. But again, you guys, the more I get exposed to the entertainment business, you got to cross your T's and dot your I's. You got to stay in contact. I mean, that's the business, right? It's who pops in.
I will tell you a funny story about Kenny, though. I didn't really like producing Hands Across America. I find the record business very difficult, and I just find the people in it, they're not my kind of people, you know, and I didn't really like producing. So anyway, we get this call from a very famous advertising guy, and he asks us if we would write the music for Dole. And they're pitching Dole. It's $100 million account.
Dole pineapple?
Dole, everything. The fruit, everything. Pops, everything. So anyway, it turns out we couldn't because the guys who introduced us, the guys Mark who introduced us to Kenny, were pitching it too. So I wrote a song for those guys, and they didn't win the account. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I get a call from Wells, Rich and Green, another agency. Gene gets the call, actually. And they say, we'd like you to write a song for Dole. And it's going to be a big competition. So, okay, so I write the song. And we win. And, I mean, I didn't really think it was that great, but okay. And then it turns out Kenny Rogers is the singer of Dole. He was getting $22 million to do the commercials. And so I went out to LA. Yeah. So I went out to LA to work with him, you know, on the song. And we're hanging out in the, you know, I have to go take a break. We go to the men's room. And he's in one urinal and I'm in the other. And he looks at me and he goes, you know, Mark, I was wondering how you like working with Hands Across America. I said, Kenny, I really didn't like it. It was, I'm totally up on the, I just didn't like the politics or anything like that. And he goes, yeah, I know. That's why I gave you this account.
Oh,
whoa!
He'd given us the Dole account, which was worth to our family about $1 million.
That's great. That's great.
He did the right thing. That's the kind of guy who dots his I's and crosses his T's.
Hey, before we move on, I'd like to mention, you know, Billy was a first responder at 9/11, and I know you wrote a song, "A Hole in the Sky," about 9/11. Why don't you tell us what your involvement was with Hole in the Sky and how that project came about with the fire department and the police department?
Okay. We lived downtown, so we were really kind of close to the towers, and like I said, we spent a lot of time with the first responders. It was a horrible thing to see because they'd go down there and they'd come back and their shoes would be melted and their gloves would have holes in them and stuff like that. It was a toxic scene that never should have been open to the public. They should have waited 6 months.
Without a doubt.
What's that, Bill?
Without a doubt. I couldn't agree with you more. Without a doubt. Christy Whitman was the one who said everything.
She's the one. Yeah, she's the one who gave the okay.
Go down. Yeah, it was fine. Right. Don't worry about it. Don't let the terrorists win.
Right. And they just should have shut it down. And so we were there. My nephew's brother just passed away. He was a first responder, and he died from working down there. So anyway. The last jingle I did was for Coca-Cola, and the guy who was responsible wanted the people who do music for advertising to do an album, about the World Trade Centers and how it affected them. And I wrote the song "Hole in the Sky." Let's see. There's a hole in the sky over me, everybody, everywhere. It's a 911 emergency. Gene came up with the title because we were in Washington Square looking down. And, of course, from Washington Square, you used to have a great view of the trade centers, but they were no longer there. So I wrote this tune, and then and it came out on this album of Jingle Writers, and then there was going to be another album put out by the Police and the Firemen, because a lot of the guys were songwriters, and they heard my song and they asked me if they could put it on their album, and I was like, that's one of the biggest honors I think I've ever had, to have a song on that album with all these firefighters and policemen. Have so much respect for what they do.
I mean, we talk about everything we do, but Billy was a retired firefighter after 20 years on the New York Fire Department, and those guys exhibit more bravery in a day than we've seen in a lifetime.
I agree with you.
Well, that's really kind for both of you to say, and I want to thank you personally for feeding us down there, because I know you did that. But just to make something clear, and I'm not happy with Christy Whitman, and I agree entirely with Mark. They should have shut the site down. But the brothers wouldn't have agreed with me. Like, the brothers, with no way they were letting their men buried underneath that, no matter what was down there. They were going to get their brothers. And
right. I wasn't actually, Billy, I wasn't thinking of that so much as, I thought that was necessary, right? But I'm talking about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards when they were sending guys down, and there was smoke coming up. We lived about 2 miles away, and every day you could smell it. So, all these toxic fumes were coming up, and I was just like, really, these guys, please, give them a break.
We've lost so many guys. The 343 we lost that day was one thing. We've lost thousands since, because exactly what happened to your in-law. It's just, toxic, the toxicity of it all down there. Matter of fact, we wrote a book about it, Combustible, and the last 5 chapters of the book are about 9/11 and the experiences that I had in editing with Frank and working back and forth about. It's the climax of the book. But yeah, it's.
Mark, why don't you, when we get through, you send me your address and I'll send you a copy of Combustible, because I think you and Jeannie would really like to read it.
Oh, I'll buy it. It's okay.
Well, I'm gonna buy Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed. You can bet on that, because the way I hear, the way you write, and after talking to you, I'm gonna read that book.
So you guys each can what's the
jerk each other off.
You guys
I think that's the term you're looking for.
You guys can each share the $1.50 commission you'll make on Amazon. The $1.50. You can each trade the $1.50 commissions you'll make on Amazon for the books.
Yeah, if you think it. Anybody who thinks it's tough to make money in the music business, try writing books.
Try writing books.
Oh man. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We're going to wrap this up. Derek, do you have any questions you want to ask Mark? And don't ask him what kind of clarinet player I was in the high school band.
Oh, you were great, Frank.
Yeah, I was great. I couldn't.
You play the guitar now, though, right? You don't still play the clarinet, right? You play that along with everything else, or what else do you play?
Yeah, he's asking you.
Oh, he's talking to me or Frank?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm talking to you. You play the clarinet, but you don't play your clarinet when you play what other instruments do you play? You still play.
This is Frank or me, Billy?
No, Mark. Do you play any other instruments besides?
Oh yeah, I play pretty much everything, a lot of instruments. And this album that we have coming out, I played all of the instruments, engineered it, produced it, and did half of the writing.
That's great.
And so, all of the instruments.
You're regular Paul McCartney.
He's a prince.
Well,
Prince.
I got to tell you something.
A prince.
I'm going to say this, okay? If you're producing, every day you're in the studio with musicians, right? And never play what you want them to play, because they're not playing for you. They're playing for the other musicians. They want to be in Steely Dan. So I want them to play like Creedence Clearwater, but that makes them appear too stupid. So they won't do that. No matter what, you just beg them. And eventually maybe maybe they'll do it. So with the advent of Logic, a $200 program, you can do it in your home. And so, for me, it was a great blessing, because I didn't have to deal with musicians. Now, I thought maybe it was unique to me, but I've called up a couple of producer friends, and they told me the same thing. I mean, it's just one of those things. Lawrence Welk was asked why his career was so long, and he said, because I never let the musicians play what they want to. That would be me.
Fantastic.
That would be me. And I'm sorry, musicians. I know, they're great. These guys are incredible, but they have a vision. They want to represent during the sessions, and it's tough for a guy like me.
Mark, this is a sort of a cliche question that I'm asking. The question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because Billy and I were at lunch. We're talking about or our 15-minute break that the producer allowed us to have. We're talking about hip hop, and I thought it was interesting that you started off or you were into hip hop in the 80s. So I'm curious about what artists were you into, and then the second question would be. Billy doesn't get it. He doesn't get hip hop at all. And I was sort of trying to get him to understand that he has to have the context first. But we can talk about that. So let's talk about your first.
Okay.
The artist.
Well, I heard the Grandmaster Flash record. It's a jungle out there. Sometimes the message.
Yeah.
And to me, it lit me up like the first time I heard Bob Dylan. It just was. I was like, oh my God, this is going to take over the world. I just felt like it was going to take over the world. And so I wrote a hip hop song called Street Justice. And that summer I heard it all over the city. And this is the thing that I would tell white people who
really? Listen.
Because it's true. That we, as white people, traditionally focus on the chords, the melody, and the words. And African American music is very rooted in the beat. And whenever somebody says, oh, that hip hop, it's just crap, I would say that hip hop, great hip hop, is as great as Beethoven and Mozart. It's incredibly complicated. It's just rhythmically. It's incredibly complicated. And white folks really don't focus on that. I'll tell you a story very quickly. There's a guy named Chris Parker who's a big-time drummer, played with Dylan for a bunch of years. And he was in Roxbury in Boston, and he was playing at a black club. And he was warming up, and he did a bass drum pattern. And this little kid, African-American kid, goes over, I know that song, just from the bass drum pattern. Wow. And then Chris Parker played him another one, and the kid just kept knowing the songs just based on the bass drum pattern. So while white folks are listening to the chord changes and words, this is a whole different thing. It's like there's a whole level that we're not focused on because culturally that's not how we grew up. So that's my answer to that.
That was a great answer.
That's a great answer, yes, especially to an old white guy. Because now I get when I don't get it.
Right. But the group that killed me was in the 80s was Run DMC. They were on Profile Records. That's the company that I did my record with. And oh man, it's like that, and that's the way it is. So
yeah, they were fantastic.
Basically, those guys just killed me.
Billy, do you know who that is?
Run DMC, sure, I heard them. I think they played my wedding song. I think.
Oh, speaking of wedding songs, I just got to get this in here because this is just a coinky dink.
Please do.
But I've written a song for my wedding, and I asked. There was a group in New York called Family Stand, African American group, very very soulful. And I said, I'd like somebody to sing my wedding song. He says, oh, call this guy. So, okay, so this guy comes in. He sings for a minute, just 1 minute. And I said, stop. I said, where did you come from? He goes, oh, I just came out of graduate school at Carnegie Mellon. I said, what's your name? He goes, Billy Porter. So Billy Porter sang my wedding song.
Wow.
Wow, that's not bad. That's good stuff.
That's great. Bill, you got a closing question?
No, I just absolutely. I mean, this was like a big surprise to me that we had the 6 degrees thing of separation. You know, like you're from Allenton Avenue and New Peppy and the Alisi brothers and just the joy.
You know me from Little League, Texaco Little League,
Defining grave diggers,
Defining grave diggers, Valhalla High School.
All my people are buried in Valhalla, so there's that 6 degrees of separation. Yeah, we're all up there. But what a pleasure, man, to meet you. Really a pleasure. And I'm going to call Peppy. I'm going to call Peppy and tell him we had you on the show.
You tell him I said hi. I'm a big fan.
I'm going to give him a call. And
I'm friends with him on Facebook and the Alessis. I mean, you're talking about just world-class talent. These guys are just amazing.
Sweethearts.
Well, speaking of world-class talent, Derek's got another question.
I just want so we have a little tradition on the show where anytime we have an artist, someone who's able to make a jingle or song or sing a little tune with a Mick, a Mook, and a mic, it would be appreciated. You got anything off the top of your head? Is that too putting you on the spot? I can cut this out.
The Mook, the Mick, and the mic, right?
Yeah,
a Mook, and a mic.
And do it in your Mark.
What is the sequence? The Mick, the Mook, and the mic?
Yeah.
Mick, Mick.
I got it now.
Mick, and you can do it in your Mark accent if you want.
Okay, here you go. The Mick, the Mook, and the mic.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, man.
If you want me
I love you guys. Thank you.
I can send you a combustible if you want to send me your address, or else if you want to just order it.
I want to buy it, man. It's just a thrill. It's going to be a thrill.
Okay.
It's a good
read. I bought your book, Frank.
I know.
It's a good read, man.
And Billy's going to buy Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed because
I'm definitely going to buy it.
I've already read it. It was terrific.
No doubt in my mind I'm going to buy it.
It was terrific.
I want to see what a freight train sounds like. It looks like when it's on fire.
You're very kind, you guys. Thank you.
Give Jeannie our love.
Thank you again, Mark.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Take care.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So.
Bye.
Oh, man. Just great. The guy was terrific. What a great interview. Today was a great day for me. I really enjoyed that a lot.
Good.
Really, really enjoyed that. Great guy.
Good.
And it's funny when he was talking about the guy who was the detective who has the most arrests and everything else. You're a member of his Facebook group.
I
Bronx
am?
Justice.
Oh, yeah?
And he's a friend of Pepe's too as well. And Pepe said that, by the way, why don't you have him on the show? He's the most decorated, detective. And Frankie Chicklets worked with him.
So why don't we have him on the show?
We should have him on the show. But Pepe said he could get him. Obviously, Mark could get him as well. But whenever I see you post the Bronx Justice, that's his Facebook.
Wow, you got a lot of secrets like that, don't you?
I have a lot of useless information.
A lot of fucking secrets
locked up in his stupid head. Useless stuff.
But you amaze me at how you can quote almost anybody. You can quote Joseph Heller. Anybody brings up. Let me tell you a story about him. Him! I fucked his sister.
Yeah, you know what? And his sister gives good head. Yeah. Great stories about Kissinger and Heller. I mean, Joseph Heller. I ran into Kurt Vonnegut in a bar. Oddly enough, I mean, what's the odds of me running into a guy in a bar?
In a bar.
I ran into Kurt Vonnegut in a bar in Limerick. As soon as I got off the plane in Ireland, I was dying for a pint of Guinness, and I went right into the bar before my bags even came out. And I walk in to drink a pint, and I look over, and who was it but Kurt Vonnegut, and unmistakable. The hair and the beard and everything. And wonderful. I talked to him for about 10 minutes. It was, it was one of the highlights to meet somebody like that. I mean, you talked about Spiro Agnew before. I was in a bar, had a drink, I looked over, and Agnew was sitting next to me, and this was just after he got indicted.
No wonder he was drinking.
I says, when one door closes, another one opens, and that's especially true in jail. So you got a lot to look forward to.
Oh yeah. Close on a high.
That is a high. That's as high as we get.
That's as high as we get. So with that, we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, don't forget. Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed, Combustible, If These Lips Could Talk, and Lamar's Gamble. And thanks for tuning in and supporting us. We appreciate it.
Have a nice Memorial Day weekend. And you too, Derek.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Hip Hop, dude, we had a show for you.
Oh, God. White people, I tell you.
White people. What do you mean, what?
Oh, I should just shut it off right here.
Oh, that was fun.
Next week's guest, actor, director, and Broadway star, D.W. Moffett.
We'll see you next week.